Of a program that helps felons returning home get reintroduced to society. Leon El-Alamin joins us. He is the founder of the MADE Institute. He'll share his story of being a young man in Flint caught up in the illegal street drug trade. He spent several years behind bars but vowed to come home and make a difference. He'll discuss the work of his organization, MADE Institute. He'll also share his story of redemption. Kenneth Marzicola will also join us today. He's recently been released from prison, and he signed up with the MADE Institute to help turn his life around. He'll share his story and also his hopes for the future. It promises to be an eye-opening Newsmaker today, and we hope you can join us. It begins in just moments. Welcome to Newsmaker. I'm your host, Dawn Jones. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, there are more than 2 million men and women incarcerated in U.S. federal and state prisons and county jails, while the United States represents about 4.5% of the world's population. It houses around 22% of the world's prisoners, more than any other place in the world. Joining us today is Leon El-Alamin. He's a former prisoner, but he's now back home in mid-Michigan in the community trying to make a difference. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Likewise, likewise.
So you are a Flint native, and let's first just talk about your story a little bit. Tell me about your upbringing in Flint.
Well, I'm born and raised here in the city's north side, over by the Pearson Road, Saginaw area. Raised mostly by my grandmother for most of my younger years of my life. As I got older, my mother was more involved in my life. Single parent from absent from having a father involvement. And you know, just growing up in this impoverished area, a black man in Flint, you know, I was attracted to what I seen outside the doors of my grandmother's house, and that was drug dealing, prostitution, gangs, and things like that that draws one's attention. I know for me, how I got attracted to that lifestyle was because I felt like I needed some kind of sense of belonging. I wanted to be a part of something. I wasn't like real good in school. I used to be almost 300 pounds, so I wasn't like a big athlete or someone like that who drew attention. So the streets, the individuals, the guys on the corners with the fast cars and money, fast money and women, that was attracted to me, and it just drew me in.
Now, we're just going to backtrack a little bit. How much a role do you think having an absent father played in this for you?
It played a critical role. I think it's important, regardless if, you know, when you have children, whether you stay with the person that you had that child with, it's important to be in that child's life. You know, I know for myself and many others like me, not having a positive male role model there allowed me to dibble and dab and try to discover life on my own, which ultimately led to me making a lot of bad choices in my life, compared to when you got a strong male figure who can calm you down and can really give some life lessons to you, and when it's time to discipline you and things like that. I think too much of that is missing in our community.
And you painted a very grim picture of life in an impoverished neighborhood. You talked about drug dealers, gangs, and prostitutes. You were seeing this as a young man, a child actually, every single day. So those are the images you saw every day?
Absolutely. On my routes to going to catch the bus to go to school, it was there early in the morning to the time I got out of school. You know, unfortunately, we don't have the schools here to where they used to be, like safe havens for a lot of kids. That was my safe haven for the most part. But when I left school, I had to come back and deal with this reality, and my neighborhood was prevalent for that. You know, what we call the old, where they closed the school, Pearson, it used to be called the neighborhood Pearson Hood. I was affiliated with that. You know, I was involved in the activities and things that took place over there, and it was detrimental to my life. You know, in the process of getting involved in all those things, I almost ended up losing my life several times because of what that environment had created.
So, and you were telling us earlier today that you were actually shot. Were you shot more than once?
Absolutely. I was actually shot in my head, my ear, and in my back. I'm deaf in this ear. From that, the result of that, I have a bad damaged nerves for the rest of my life. You know, and what's scary about that is that after I was shot, I end up catching the case that I end up catching and being sentenced for, and end up having to kind of like recover in jail and ultimately into prison.
Do you think that being caught may have saved your life?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was headed towards death, and I seen it. You know, a lot of people around me were constantly dying. I lost one of my best friends over $10 in a dice game. I lost another good friend at the corner store for telling jokes. An individual was out of his mind and just blew his head off. I was seeing things like that, and I knew.
In the neighborhood, people were easy to shoot, and you know, they were easy to anger and easy just to pull a trigger. Is that the reality of that?
That's the reality. That's the reality of the street life, and when you're really in it, that's what comes with it. You know, is no in between. If you get into that world, that's what it breeds, to where you have to carry guns, where you put your not only your life but your family life is always in danger and things like that. And that's what that whole community had turned out to be. The whole community was drug infested, and this was the environment kids like myself had to grow up in.
Now, how old were you when you went to prison, and how did that experience change you?
Well, I was actually 21 years old. I had like a 3-year run out in the streets from the time I was 18. I actually graduated. I kept a promise to my grandmother I would graduate, but once I graduated, I really got into the streets. And so by the time I was 21, the law had caught up with me. I had caught this case, what I call renting friends, and individuals that I had around me when you're doing good and you can do things for them, you got money. One of those individuals ended up setting me up, and I ended up catching the case for drugs and possession of a gun.
So what's life like behind the bars? Obviously a lot of time to reflect. And is that where you decided that you were going to break this cycle, at least in your family?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I was sentenced to 12 to 20 years, and I'm thankful a drug law change in 2003 came about, and I ended up only having to serve 7 years. But while that time, during that 7 years, I was in what they would call a high-level security, where you 22 hours locked down, you only get 2 hours outside. You're in there with lifers and people who are never coming home. I had an opportunity to meet some good individuals, some lifers who became mentors to me. And they just really...
That can happen. So people
Absolutely.
Behind bars can become mentors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's one individual in particular, Mr. Mubarak Ahmed. It's two actually, I'm sorry, and Mr. Dwayne Roper. They were two lifers, and they kind of took me under their wing, and they would just let me know about how they made some bad decisions and choices in their life. And I would listen to these guys every day, and I started to really reflect on my personal life and the damaging things that I was doing. So that mentorship, also my spirituality. I grew up in the Baptist church family with my mother and individuals. While I was incarcerated, I converted to Islam as a discipline for me, as well as started studying more about my history and ancestors, gaining that knowledge of self. I think it's very important. These were the things that was never taught to me in my household or in school. So I became inspired reading about Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, Malcolm X, and individuals who have similar stories like me, especially Malcolm X is like one of my greatest heroes, you know, because he was a street hustler, and I read his story and was like, I seen myself in it. And I knew it would be things like that, from the reading, reflecting, exercising, spirituality, and that mentorship. I decided I had to come back out here and be a part of the change.
Yeah, and did you find those mentors became like father figures to you, the fathers that you never had? Absolutely.
Big brothers, a father, you know, these guys are everything to me. You know, I keep in contact with them to this day. Actually, these individuals have particular cases to where the state is looking at them to where they may have an opportunity to seek freedom again. You know, so I'm very optimistic about that. I would love to have some of those guys who serve their time and can be really assets and be mentors out here and help us with this work.
All right. Newsmaker will return in just moments. We're sitting down today with Leon El-Alamin. He's the founder of the MADE Institute, and we'll learn more about that in our next segment. Welcome back to Newsmaker. We are talking today with Leon El-Alamin. He's the founder of the MADE Institute. It's an organization that helps returning felons get reintroduced to society. And thanks so much for joining us. Very interesting first segment. So while in prison, you decided that when you got out, you were going to make a positive difference in your community. Is that how MADE Institute came about?
Absolutely. I have a younger brother and sister that's up under me, and I would hear about all the horror stories. It was getting younger and younger, the young folks that was trying to follow that same path that I once took. They're killing each other and things like that, and I knew I just had to do something. Another individual that I met while incarcerated, that was from a different neighborhood of mine. We used to be kind of like rivals in the drug trade. He was from what they call Merle Hood. I was from Pearson Hood. It was very ironic that same mentor he ran across in prison, and we ended up linking up, building a strong relationship. Mr. Tim Abdul-Mateen, who's also one of my business partners and board of directors of MADE Institute. And you know, it was just like, we have to do something. You know, I was just seeing like these kids out here, they're more hardened. They're feeling like it's hopeless. There's nothing for them out here. And I feel like we have, with our life stories, we have something to offer. We can connect. We can relate to them. And I think that's very important moving forward and bridging the gap and discovering the things that they may need to make it to the next level and be successful.
What does MADE Institute stand for, M-A-D-E?
It stands for Money, Attitude, Direction, and Education. And the reason it's an acronym and the reason we named it that, these are the things individuals coming out of prison need. They need money, but we want to show them ways of how to make legal money to provide for themselves and their family. And to achieve that, you have to have a positive attitude. So we want to help them work on that attitude so they can get to the stage of getting good jobs and things like that to make legal money. And that takes direction. So we're giving them direction and, of course, proper education, which is ongoing. You know, so we feel like those are the key ingredients that an individual needs when they came out. So that's kind of where the name came from.
And it was founded in 2014.
Yes.
And already your organization is getting recognition. You've had some funding from the foundations here in our community to help you with your mission and support you. And tell us about the recent award, the Unsung Hero Award you just won.
You know, I'm very thankful for the Flint branch of NAACP, the Mayor of Flint, Dr. Mayor Karen Weaver, and all her support for the Unsung Hero Award, Vera B. Rising. Anyone who knew Miss Vera B. Rising, she was a servant for the people. So this award here means so much to me. You know, I'm very thankful to receive that and appreciative that individuals in the community are starting to recognize the work that myself and the board and those involved with the MADE Institute are doing. So it means a lot.
Now, when a person is, and congratulations on those awards, and when a person is released from prison, what do they have as they try to reintroduce themselves to society, and what's the biggest challenge?
They have a bus pass and the clothes on their back. And if they don't have any family support, that's pretty much it. So when they come back, you have to meet your PO and then the criteria and things that they may have for you. But for the most part, you're limited in resources. And for a lot of individuals, they may have burnt bridges or family members may have passed on, so they have no support. And that's why this work is so critical and so important. And this is why we're so passionate about reaching individuals who are returning back into this community.
Now, how hard is the work? It has to be hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard. You know, I stay prayed up. I would like to say that, you know, because you're dealing with so many different mindsets and different individuals who are dealing with different situations or things that they're trying to deal within themselves. So each individual is a little different, but you know, I have a great support team around me, and we're having some progress and we're making some things happen, so I'm very thankful. But it's very hard.
Now, tell us about some of the programs there at the MADE Institute. I know housing is one of them, and you also have a green initiative where you're helping people, returning felons, get introduced into to green technology and how they can help reduce the carbon footprint and all of that. So tell us about the programs there.
Absolutely. Well, with the Roof My Foundation, I'm very thankful. Major foundations seen the importance of the work that we're doing and was willing to invest into a grassroots kind of early young organization as they have, supporting us with that funding allowed us to rehab the home on the city's north side and turn it into a transitional house, which houses 4 individuals. We do ours a little different than some other transitional housing. We really want to we made it a safe place and somewhere that's like inviting and comfortable. It doesn't make a person feel like they're still in prison when they come back out. Some other initiatives that we're big on is vocational training in the skilled trades, and that's part of that green initiative. Prior, like last year, we got some funding as well, and we partnered with another group to actually get that started, where we worked with 10 individuals that came home from prison back to the city's north side, and we found high success. These individuals are still working to this current day.
All 10?
All 10.
Okay.
All 10. So
that's a 100% success rate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've seen that that can be very effective. The construction industry is very felony friendly. So we're working right now with the state of Michigan and doing another collaboration and partnership to continue that skilled trades process. Also, we're big on life skills and mentoring. Can never enough mention the importance of having mentors. For myself and many others, it started with those lifers in prison, and that's what individuals like myself are doing here on the outside with individuals that we come in contact with.
You're paying it forward.
Absolutely.
Paying it forward.
Absolutely.
Now, and congratulations on that 100% success rate, but how difficult is it to keep people from returning back to that life once they come back to the same community they left?
It's very difficult when there's a lack of resources and a lack of collaborations and individuals seeing the importance and need for this type of work. I think our biggest hiccup is not having enough funding to keep programming going throughout the year, and that's something that myself and my team, we're working with a consultant from the BEST project with United Way. We're also working with consultants from SIPI to build our programming out and to structure our organization to be able to receive more funding and accept larger amounts to where we can really be more proactive with these programs and help a lot more people.
All right. Well, in our next segment, we will be joined by Kenneth Marzicola. He's recently been released from prison, and he's currently enrolled in Made Institute. And of course, Mr. El-Alamin will join us for that segment as well. We'll be right back. This is our final segment of Newsmaker for the day, and we're sitting down with the founder of Made Institute. It's an organization that helps returning felons get reintroduced to society. And joining me again for this segment is the founder of that organization, Leon El-Alamin, and also program participant, Kenneth Marzicola. And thank you so much for joining us, both of you gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us, Kenneth. Now, Leon, why don't you tell us how you, first of all, go about choosing a person to participate in the Made Institute? I know funding is limited, space is limited, so you really have to put a lot of consideration into who you consider for the program. Absolutely.
We try to identify and work with those who are kind of like motivated. We have a good relationship as well as with the offender success, which is like the prison reentry here with the probation officers and parole agents and so forth, and that's critical, having that good relationship, because then they can kind of help make recommendations who they feel would be a good fit for our program. We also just work with individuals who kind of already been out, not necessarily not be coming out of prison or on parole or probation, but who have heard of us, the word of mouth, or know it's been following the work and have felons and some other issues and barriers that they're dealing with, and then they just reach out to us, and we begin the intake process from there.
And Kenneth, you recently released from prison?
From boot camp.
From boot camp?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are part of the Made Institute program. You're a participant?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about your story. Where'd you grow up, and what was it like growing up?
Okay, so I was born in Alpena, Michigan, and then we moved to Flint, Michigan when I was 12 years old on the west side. And growing up was fine. I was raised by my mother and stepfather, and so when I was about 12 years old, two of my uncles that was released from prison got tethered to my house, and that's when I began to see drugs and the party life and fast money. So I kind of was around that for a long time. So I wanted to be a part of that, you know. That's all I see.
It was attractive to you.
It was attracted to me, so that's how that came about.
And so how long did you spend in boot camp? How long is boot camp?
Boot camp is 90 days.
90 days. And how did that boot camp experience change you?
It changed me is I had to swallow my pride when I first got there because they're always in your face, you know. And then I learned discipline, a lot of discipline. And you know, there's a lot of programs in there too that I benefit from. I got my GED in there. Okay. And I had substance abuse class that I graduated from too, so that's very beneficial too, and a couple of certifications that I got, some Microsoft certifications, and
so you got some skills that you know.
Correct.
So you can be employed. At least you can work the Microsoft Office suite, you know, when you get out. Okay.
Yes.
So now, Leon was telling us that they look for people who are motivated. Are you motivated to make a difference in your life now that you have this? Do you feel like it's a second chance for you?
Yes, 100%. I'm definitely motivated. I do got a daughter that's 3 years old, and I have a boy on the way right now. And I'm motivated. I just want to change my life, you know, and they offer that. They have a lot of programs, especially the skills trade program that I'm going to be involved in. And I'm very excited about that because that will give me certifications also for better jobs, you know, because being a felon, that kind of hurts me on getting a better job, you know, and that's going to help me get a better job.
The more skills you have,
correct,
the more attractive you look to employers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And what are your goals for the future? You have a young family. With this second chance, how do you plan to use it, and will you become a mentor and pay it forward as well?
Right, yes, I definitely want to pay it forward because you know, I didn't have a lot of the resources, you know, so me gaining all these certificates and everything will put me in a better position to help my community too.
And provide for your family.
Right, yeah, provide for my family. Definitely, that's my #1 goal too, is because, you know, I was abandoned by my real father, so I don't want to recreate that with my daughters and my son.
That cycle.
Right, correct.
All right. Well, we're wishing you all the best, and we'll keep up with you,
Thank
Kenneth.
you.
Yeah, wishing you all the best. And Leon, let's get back to the MAID Institute. So he's a part of the transitional housing. He stays there at the transitional housing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And how many people can you house there at one time?
The way ours is set up is for 4 individuals. We have 4 bedrooms. We didn't want to double bunk it up. We really wanted each individual to kind of have their own space so they can really begin to evaluate themselves and have that quiet and time to really reflect on what it is that they want to do, putting their plan together as they move forward to reintegrate back into the community. So it's been going well.
It's been going well. And when you hear people like Kenneth talk about the benefits of the MAID Institute, how does that make you feel? You know, to know that while you were behind bars, you vowed to make a difference, and it appears that that is what's happening.
It makes me feel awesome. You know, I can't say it enough. We were just having this conversation at class yesterday, and we were talking about some things that, you know, like when an individual been through those type of situations, and to see where we at now, and then when you see individuals who are benefiting from it, that means the world to me, because that's what it's all about. It's about me giving back to this community that I feel like I took so much from, you know, and it's just the first step. And I really believe like the more support and things we get, we're going to be able to affect and have a greater impact on more lives.
Now, very quickly, because our time is running out in about 10 seconds or less, talk about that support. How can someone support you in this mission, and how do they contact you?
Well, we have a website at www.madeinstitute.org. Also, the phone number is 810-835-8304. Our main office is located at the Sylvester Boom Empowerment Village, which is at 4119 North Saginaw Street. Our office space is on the 3rd floor. And, you know, you just contact us today.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you, Leon, for joining us today. And, of course, we thank you at home for watching today's Newsmaker. Until next time, I'm your host, Dawn Jones.